Reading Simulator Enable, you opened the introduction of, "The evolution of this ant is not scientific," and saw the sentence. When everyone started to know that ant, everyone exclaimed. The evolution of this ant is not scientific. You think the evolution of ants must be very interesting, after all, the flow of beasts, so you continue to click into the book and read it, looking forward to the rapid devouring and evolution of ants. After reading the first 10 chapters, you didn't see ants rapidly evolving into dragons. What do you think this is? The plot unfolds so slowly, but due to the use of an emulator, you can continue reading. After silently reading the first 50 chapters, you patted your thigh and exclaimed, "This is not the evolution flow of exotic beasts, but a novel about the backstage flow of anti-summoning." You were hit by a sudden plot reversal and became excited. After reading dozens of chapters crazily, you encountered reading chapters. Because in high spirits, you gritted your teeth and continued to click on reading. After reading the first chapter, you exclaimed in shock, "Scammer, this is clearly a clone descending into the infinite flow of the heavens." Although you exclaimed in surprise, you didn't stop reading. You saw 120 chapters at once and suddenly realized, saying, "This must be science fiction. It's impossible to change again." So you continue to click and read with a determined heart, and you need to see if the conclusion you have drawn for this book is correct until you exclaim loudly, "What's the law? How could it be like this?" Positioning of this book. Setting upgrade articles, group accounts can be used to view related works, keywords of the novel. The evolution of this ant is unscientific with no pop-ups, the evolution of this ant is unscientific. Download the complete set of TXT, and the latest chapter on the evolution of this ant is unscientific. Chapter 1. Volunteers in the Laboratory. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Volunteers in the Laboratory. Ivan is the most authoritative and knowledgeable scholar in the federal community in this era, possessing the most knowledge and research on biological genetics. Ivan, who was awarded the title of Federal Era Scientist in the 3088 year of the Federal Cosmic Calendar, does not consider himself the most authoritative. He believes that there is only one most authoritative genetic researcher in the world. That is the organism itself. No scholar studying genetic science knows as much as any organism. Ivan's argument is well known in the federal academic community, but not widely accepted. After all, besides scholars who study biology and genetic science, who can explain how life came about, how it changed, and how it evolved. Biology itself knows more than scholars, that's simply ridiculous. They may be gene banks, but where do gene banks know how to conduct research? How can we put research results and theories discovered through exploration into practice, change the world, and create incredible things? Academic discourse, controversial statements about the great scientist Ivan. Professor E., have you come up with a plan? If you sign this agreement, no matter what terrible consequences may occur in the future, the 4th District will not be able to seek compensation from the federal government for you. Within the 4th region of the Gene Institute, known as one of the top 10 genetic research laboratories, Ivan, the most authoritative biogenologist in the federal community, is facing the most important decision that will change one's life. In front of him was a volunteer manual that seemed incredibly heavy to everyone. The instruction manual reads, "I voluntarily and understand that the experiment I am participating in is of high risk, and I understand that high risk may represent death, disability, sequelae, and irreparable physical injury. I voluntarily accept the consequences of this high risk and once again promise not to pursue any damages caused by participating in this experiment. Yes, I understand. This is my own research, and I voluntarily and clearly understand its risks." Ivan looked at the police officer in front of him, dressed in the attire of an FBB gene sequence frontline combat unit member, with a hint of composure on his face. "I have been studying that ant for almost 10 years, and now it is time to break through. Live experiments are not allowed by the federal government, especially high-risk live experiments. Unless there are scientific researchers who understand the risks involved and voluntarily participate in this experiment, and declare their willingness to bear the risks of this experiment, the consequences of these risks will not be pursued. So, please sign your name here. The FBI officers unconsciously changed their title in Ivan's composure, and you became you, not to please, but to show respect. All right. Ignoring the change in the police officer, Ivan raised his neutral pen and wrote his name on the volunteer letter with a dragon-like brush. Very good, then please follow me to the experimental site. FBB police officers couldn't help but sigh when they saw these two regular characters, Ivan, square and majestic. Unfortunately, if it weren't for this experiment, it would have been necessary about 3 days ago. The Federation has received a mysterious meteor returned from an alien colony. Meteors are the size of fists and contain unknown energy inside. This energy is not within any known element of the Federation, and can be said to be a brand new energy element. So, it was sent to the forefront of scientists for research. Ivan was fortunate enough to participate in that joint experiment as an authoritative representative of biology. In the experiment, they went from scratch and successfully tested the energy power of the meteor. Fusion. There are no wrong adjectives. That meteor can cause a fusion of organisms and matter, resembling a recombination mutation. This is an incredible force beyond science. It also has intricate connections with the ant that Ivan had been studying for a long time. This relationship starts from the word fusion. At the moment Ivan saw the impact of meteors on life and matter, he realized that his ant, which was inexplicably able to absorb metals, might have been influenced by this meteor. No, it could even be this meteor from the same excavation area that gave him that magical power. So Ivan issued his own call. Conduct live experiments. Crazy, bold, genius. This is what everyone thought in their hearts at the moment when they proposed a live experiment for Ivan. Although everyone respects this proposal, no one agrees with him, just like he always talks at length about the argument that biology is the most knowledgeable about genes. Unexpectedly, Ivan initiated a volunteer program on his own, following the reactions of numerous scientists. Step on. Recalling in his mind how he got here, Ivan was somewhat surprised by the person blocking him in front of him. Teacher, are you sure you want to go in? It's Wu Luoga. The only student from the Western region who is willing to exchange ideas for 10 years. Well, if anything happens to me, you go take over the experiment. Ivan remained silent for a moment, then entrusted. But do I deserve it? Wu Luoga hesitated on his sharp face. Paired. No one is worthy in this world because everyone is worthy. Ivan is somewhat contemptuous of using this word, and there is never a match, only a willingness or unwillingness. This time it was Wu Luoga's turn to remain silent. Teacher, walk well. Wu Luoga suddenly looked up and replied. Oh. How do you know that I will definitely leave? Ivan suddenly laughed and jokingly made a point of it. The risk is almost equal to 100%. This is pioneering and also asking for directions by throwing stones. Everyone is waiting, no one wants to take responsibility. Wu Luoga answered seriously, knowing that teacher Ivan understood his meaning. So, I am that stone. Ivan laughed again. Like a spring breeze, generous and calm. Looking at the old back of the Gosazi, it now stands like a high mountain. As heavy as Mount Taishan. Wu Luoga suddenly felt this sentence floating in his heart. Thank you. The FBI officer opened the door to the experimental facility and turned around to salute. You are welcome. Without further delay, Ivan bowed back and walked into the experimental field. Click, the door has closed. Click, the other door opened. Magnetic. The pressure difference between the double isolation doors released a magnetic exhaust sound. That is a thick partition wall and also a barrier of fear. Will there be radiation? Wu Luoga walked back to the experimental observation area and looked at the FBB police officer who escorted Ivan into the experimental field. Do you think it's appropriate to discuss this at this time? The FBB officer frowned and felt that the student's question was inappropriate. Oh. Wu Luoga let out an exclamation and fell silent. Start. The experiment has begun. The scientists wearing Federal Laboratory isolation suits all gathered their minds. They looked at the huge and heavy glass screen, which contained a chief biological scientist destined to contribute to scientific research. There is also a mysterious meteor. Wait, who put the ant that fused the chip inside? Don't start, don't start. This is a variable, it can't start. It's messy. It's messy. Just as the energy of the mysterious meteor was about to be stimulated and released, an experimental assistant suddenly exclaimed. He shouted loudly and intercepted, but among the people present, only Wu Luoga looked at him with a hint of pity. Xie Ma Er, do you know that variable was calculated, right? Wu Luoga's words are very strange. If Xie Ma Er knew, how could she suddenly scream? Wait. Are you saying that? You guys actually, Xie Ma Er looked at Wu Luoga's face and suddenly understood something. This is intentional. They deliberately did not include additional variables according to the agreement. Oh my goodness. This is murder. This is murder. Xie Ma Er shouted out his heart. No, this is a contribution to scientific research. The Federation will remember him. We will do it too. The scientists spoke up. Full of reverence. Also filled with indifference. That's rationality. It's also indifference. Did it indeed confirm that statement? They are all waiting. Yeah, what are you waiting for? Waiting for someone to sacrifice to obtain noble honor. And let the living obtain secular rights, wealth, and status. And what they most want, an unimaginable scientific research achievement. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Destined Honors. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 3. Ants taken away. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Ants taken away. Pit, the Skylark King's sharp beak had already pecked at the moment he selected the food. But the pecked ant did not make a popping sound of its broken body as a result of the pecking. On the contrary, it was pitted, echoing two echoes of metal blocks being struck. Chatting. The Skylark King was surprised and let out a chirping sound of questions. It lifted its head and looked around. Each skylark was earnestly pecking at the dead ant, and no sparrow noticed the anomaly it had discovered. Chatting. As if a question had risen in his head, the Skylark King tilted his head and chirped twice before pecking at the ant again. Pit, the sound of metal rang out again, and the Skylark King, who had not pecked at the ants, began to jump away without calmness. Chatting. I have never pecked an ant that made such a sound before, and the Skylark King decided to leave with his timid intuition. It jumped 2 steps to the right and bumped into the little skylark next to it, which was pecking at ants. Cha-cha. The Skylark King scared the little skylark away with a somewhat majestic voice and gaze, and then began his lunch time. The sun slowly tilts westward, and the clouds in the sky roll and relax. After a feast of flying ants, the skylarks gradually flew away under the guidance of the Skylark King. In the area where one eats in place, except for a handful of lark droppings, there are only a few remaining ant remains that have been eaten. And the black pit ant was also mixed with the droppings of these larks and the remains of the ants. Cough cough. Where am I? I don't know how long it has been, the sun and moon have already risen in the sky, and the black ant finally woke up. It shook its huge head, its 2 tentacles constantly swaying, and its mouth opening and closing with a click, as if talking to itself. How could my eyes split into so many small squares? I feel dizzy, who am I? Wait, where is this? The big-headed black ant shook its big head, and its trembling limbs and legs struggled to take 2 steps with it. Afterwards, it fell and fell sideways. I am. Yes, I am Ivan, a biological genetic scientist. Troubled, what's wrong with me? The ant constantly oscillates between falling and getting up, gradually regaining control of its body and mind, and gradually recalling fragmented fragments of its past life. Wait, what has the feeling of compound eyes, these legs and feet turned into? Lingji returned to the scientist who discovered something unusual about him. He remembered his name as Ivan and also remembered his identity as a former human. But how could he have 6 legs? Also, what's going on with so many screens in front of his eyes? What were you thinking just now? Wait, why did he forget some important things? He looked so dizzy. I feel dizzy. Bang! Ivan, who had just woken up for a while, fell into a coma again. His massive ant body collapsed on the wilderness. The wind blows through the wilderness at night, bringing a slight coolness to the dry land and hot air. Ahem, ahem, roar, meow, wong wong, strange shouts echoed incessantly on the wilderness, and the wild beasts who hid in the daytime to avoid the scorching sun began their day-long night hunting. Sha sha sha, bang 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 bang, step by step, countless footsteps sounded, accompanied by the footsteps of hunting and escaping. This is the symphony of prey and hunters at night, and it is also a manifestation of the vitality in this wilderness. But all of this doesn't affect the ant colony that was flown by the giant dragon. Apart from being visited by skylarks once, there are no other animals paying attention to this place. The moon becomes brighter and the night becomes deeper. The ant, who had fainted, woke up again. Or rather, the chip on its head woke up. Detected signs of intelligent life forms, start collecting life form data, establishing a genetic database, start the chip analysis system, detected relevant data information source, merge information sources, ding, merge information sources, extract information data, complete data pairing, establishing a black iron maw biochip lock, smart type 2 AI chip startup. Automatically named Black Iron Ma AI Smart Chip, Analysis Function Enabled, Database Function Enabled. Information Collection System Enabled, Virtual Laboratory and Deduction Function waiting to be enabled, Special System detected, Special System successfully enabled, Ant Form Evolution opens up, Detected Prayer, Make Echo Adjustment, System Self.Test, Radar activated, Scanning the convenient 5-meter environment for the owner of the organism, Other biological data detected. Data Start Ratio, No database records, automatically collect data, Name Wild Ant detected Earth. Composition, No database records, automatically collected data, named Unknown Metal Composition, Metal Synthesis sounds echoed one after another, and data messages flew by one after another. On the head of the black iron maw, the huge chip kept flashing with charming brilliance. This ray of light gradually caught the attention of small microorganisms around, and curious insects flew over quietly. Hey, what are these insects doing? A delicate and beautiful creature approached the spot of light surrounded by countless small insects. She was dressed in green leaves, which covered a small part of her sensitive area but revealed large areas of snow-white and slippery skin. This is a creature revered by insects as a little elf. Because of respect, when the little elf approached the black ant, the surrounding insects made way. This ant is a bit interesting. Look at this size, it's perfect as a mount for me. Take it back and show it to sister. When you get angry with her, she will definitely envy you. Hee. The little elf approached the black ant and looked at its huge body, almost as tall as its own thighs and 3 times its own height. It knew that this black ant was not an ordinary insect. She has always been curious and willing to compete with her family's older sister. So I really enjoy bringing some exotic flowers and plants outside to show my sister, who is the queen of elves. This time encountering such a comatose big ant, she said she wanted to bring everything back to make Jia envious. Tisk, it's really heavy. If you can save your life, you promise with your own life. Ha, if you promise to be my mount, look at that old lady who always snatches my things and bullies me, and that mother who always says I'm not big, will she still look down on me? They will definitely look at me with new eyes. Humph, the name of my Ant Knight Elia will definitely resound throughout this dragon wilderness in the future. Definitely. Elf Elia boasted to herself while struggling to tug at the black ant. After several attempts, she finally picked up the black ant and walked towards her home. But soon, she lost her strength and fell to the roadside. Finally, it was the friendly big insects who helped her carry the black ant back home. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Elf Oasis. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Elf Oasis. On the way back with ants, she hummed and sang happily, imagining the name of Ant Knight in the future. In her opinion, he will definitely be a resounding figure in the future. Even more resounding than her elder sister and the Elf Queen. In the midst of this joyful singing in the conformity of insects, they returned to their own homes. That is an oasis that is not commonly seen in a desert, but it is also not considered rare. For the barren dragon wilderness, this oasis can be ranked 7th. From a distance, the oasis is constantly shrouded in scattered lights. If you look more carefully, you can find that these lights are both water spirits and wood spirits emitting the breath of life. A few yellow lights that fall a few inches above the ground are earth spirits except for water spirits and wood spirits. However, wind spirit and fire spirit are not common in this oasis. On the contrary, at the foot of the giant dragon mountain where the little elves come, they can often be seen. If one day you see extraterrestrial light elves such as the golden spirit, iron spirit, and even the life spirit, it proves that this world has once again overlapped with another world. But now, it's not a time for multi-world stacking. So, in my mind, I kept fantasizing about the little elf Elia, who could ride a big ant and fight on the stacked battlefield. After returning to reality from her daytime dream, she looked regretful. Ah, when will we go to war again? What a useless little elf. Elia does not understand the preciousness of peace. The insects carrying ants next to her may understand, but unfortunately they cannot speak, so there is no one on site to refute Elia's words. No, you can't sigh, Elia. Even without a battlefield, can't I challenge all the heroes? TSK, I must become the legendary Dimension Knight. Let's start with this big ant mount. As she was walking, Elia suddenly became self-motivated, shouting and cheering for herself, which frightened a group of insects carrying goods. Fortunately, Elia didn't make any other crazy moves except for jumping up and flapping her wings, shouting loudly for a few words. Otherwise, the insects next to her might be startled away, and no one would help Elia move the big ants. Oh, our little princess has returned. Perhaps upon hearing the shouts from this side, a group of constantly flapping little elf guards flew closer to Elia. The little elf led by him is wearing full armor and is a majestic warrior. Uncle Bobbia, they all said don't call me princess. I'm a knight, the Elia Knight. After being shouted by the captain of the guard, Elia's newly uplifted spirit suddenly vented. She rolled her eyes in frustration and then argued to correct the Babylonian uncle. But her appearance is really cute, in the eyes of the guards, it's like playing coquettish. Ha ha ha, our little princess is so cute. No wonder it makes sense to be called the Pearl of Oasis. That's, our queen's only sister must have some outstanding qualities. It seemed that there was no hierarchy, and in front of the little princess, the guards were all kind and comfortable chatting and laughing. The only thing that feels a bit uncomfortable is our little princess herself. Humph, I'm so angry. I won't tell you anymore, I need to go back and wake up my ant mount. TSK, when I train my mount and become an ant knight, I will challenge you one by one. Wait for me to beat you all to the ground and look for teeth. Ilya's plump appearance is very likable, but she herself is in a rage. The guards are still laughing, and she has already waved her hand and walked away with the insects. Is it an ant mount? Captain Barbia of the guards also saw the huge ant, and to be honest, the size of the ant was indeed astonishing. Generally speaking, the height of elves is 5 centimeters, while the little princess is slightly more delicate at 3 centimeters or more. Compared to ordinary insects, this height is already quite robust, but the length of the black ant lying alone exceeds 10 centimeters. Obviously, it is either a mutant species or a bloodline ant with some special bloodline. If they could really be trained as battle mounts, as Princess Elia said, then perhaps one day in the future, these guards could be beaten to death. What's wrong with me? How could I think so seriously? Let's go, you kids, continue patrolling with me. The wind from the giant dragon fan over there has not completely calmed down. Haven't you seen so many wind spirits dancing? Captain Bobbia lost his composure for a while before coming back to his senses with a dumbfounded smile. As soon as he regained his composure, he changed his face and roared loudly, as if the guards were flying slower and were about to be poisoned. Just as the guards were patrolling, Elia had already returned to her residence with the huge black ant. And those insects who put in effort also received a heavy gift in gratitude from Elia. Each person is bitten by a piece of water condensed with water spirit. The so-called water bite refers to the semi-solid water droplets formed by the water spirits that have been stacked from other worlds and preserved in this world, using their own water control power to condense water vapor. Because drinking this water droplet is done through biting, it is also called water bite by the little elves. Water bites are not precious, they can be seen everywhere in oases. It's hard to say for the insects coming from the dragon wilderness, this is a rare water source, and we should be grateful and happy. You can come find me if you have nothing to do in the future. I need many little brothers. This is just a sweetness. If you bring more insects over, I will train you into an insect army. We sweep across the wilderness and form the Ilia Legion, roar. Elia, who was recruiting troops and horses everywhere, was imagining the future, and these insects that responded to Elia, a little elf adult, also took advantage of each other and left the oasis with water bites. They will be a member of the Ilia Insect Legion from today on. As the first backbone of the Legion, they will go to the wilderness to gather new soldiers and bring them to Elia's side. If they still remember this call when they leave the oasis. These insect soldiers are still obedient, unlike those guards who both laugh at me. Humph, look at the insect army at my training center, which has impressed the entire oasis. Elia looked at the colorful shells of the departing insects and imagined in her heart how her army would surprise the other little elves in the oasis. She was immersed in her own imagination, completely ignoring the ant mound it was holding dear to, as well as what she had just said about waking up this black ant. I don't know how long it has been, but at a moment when Elia was still immersed, the big black ant moved by herself and slowly opened a pair of compound eyes above her head. Where am I? Ivan felt a bit dizzy, and his eyes were still very uncomfortable as they were divided into countless pieces. These blocky visuals were like hundreds of screens placed in front of him, making him feel dizzy and disoriented. Hey, ant, did you wake up on your own? Ha ha ha. Hurry up and call me Master. I saved you. Come on, let's sign the Mount Blood contract. From now on, you will be my mount, Lord Elia Knight. Ivan had not yet recovered from the discomfort of transforming into an ant, while Elia was already laughing heartily and shouting to sign a blood contract with it. Wait, what kind of blood contract? Don't come over. Wait for me, wake up a bit, it's so dizzy. No, you don't. Don't take off your clothes. Wait, no, don't, End of this chapter. Chapter 5. This ant is mine. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. This ant is mine. Elia's room is on a small tree, which is about 50 meters high and has a trunk diameter of nearly 10 meters. It is one of the most famous vegetation in the oasis, the new bud of the world tree, and also the child of the young world tree in the center of the oasis. The youth world tree, known as the oasis heart, is called the Yalta mother tree, with a height of 200 meters and a trunk diameter of 30 meters, it is the most magnificent and enormous vegetation in the entire oasis. The palace of the elf kingdom is built on the trellis of the youth world tree. The sapling of the world tree, also known as the Yalta sapling, is affectionately referred to as green hope. Elia dominates on the treetop of the young tree, which is the central platform at the top of the trunk and also within the treetop where the crown connects to the position of the trunk. At this moment, a chase is taking place on the young tree platform of Yalta. The party being chased is running with stumbling and bumping, like a big black-headed ant. The chasing party, dressed in disheveled clothes and holding a small knife, was a winged but non-flying elf. Black ant, don't run, I won't hurt you. I am your master, I am Elia. The second princess of the Oasis elf kingdom and also the youngest daughter of the Oasis elf queen. Don't be afraid, just follow me and you can eat spicy food or anything. There is nothing more enjoyable than me in this oasis. Princess Elia was panting heavily, and the tip of her knife still carried a strand of blood that she had just cut, which she had cut through her arm while preparing to use magic to condense the blood contract. Unexpectedly, as soon as he cut his arm, the big black ant, which was half asleep and half awake, ran away. She was still running very fast. Several times when she saw it fall, Elia thought she could finally catch up, but she didn't want it to get up and continue running just as she lifted her knife and prepared to do it again. No, no, it's not possible. Please stop and I'll rest. Elia was too tired to pursue in the end, so she decided not to pursue anymore. She slammed down the weapon in her hand and sat down panting on the ground. I don't believe it. Just as Elia was panting heavily, she suddenly heard an unexpected response. This response caused her pupils to contract instantly, and a shock-like sensation immediately spread throughout her body. Oh my goodness! You can talk. You are a Warcraft. Elia was so excited that she couldn't get any more excited. She never thought of picking up a big ant on her own when she went out. It turned out to be a talking Warcraft. Oh my God, this is a Warcraft. In the Oasis, the only Warcraft is the Queen's Mount, the Lake Frog. That's a terrible mount. Second-level Warcraft, that's the boss of the Oasis. Once again, Elia's eyes emitted a captivating light. She slowly raised the dagger in her hand and once again frantically pounced on the black ant who was turning to steal a glance. Oh! I said you're not trustworthy. In that moment of looking back, Ivan's soul surged and he saw the winged elf emitting a cannibalistic aura. It was a gluttonous beast seeing food, a hungry wolf seeing a little lamb, a knight seeing a precious mount. Help me. Killed. Unexpectedly waking up from outside the wilderness, Ivan was chased and ran, shouting loudly. What he didn't notice was that he was able to speak. For a Warcraft, this may not be a big deal, but for an ant, it's not that simple. No wonder Elia recognizes Ivan, who is now in the form of an ant, as a Warcraft. After all, in this world, only Warcraft can speak. What is Elia doing again? What a little devil. When everything is safe in the Oasis, she is the most dangerous. Princess Elima, who is assisting her mother's office in the Oasis Palace, has a headache. She doesn't want her sister to not get married in the future. Although the Elf Kingdom values women as its top priority, women will eventually seek a spouse. If it's too much trouble and no elf warrior dares to marry her, then it's a big mess. Princess, shall I go and take a look? The palace assistant also heard the sound coming from Elia's residence. She looked at Elima and asked softly. No need, Mia. You can continue to handle government affairs here. I have already written a solution, you can go and issue it. Elima clearly wanted to personally teach her sister, so she waved her hand to signal the female official Mia to stay in place and go see the situation. Quickly, Elima bid farewell to Mia and flew to the trellis of the Yalta sapling. As soon as I approached here, I heard countless cries for help. The sound was like a magnet, like the sound of metal, and also like the sliding of lightning. Is this Warcraft? After Elima saw clearly the chase between Elia and the ant, she listened and found that the sound of saving her life was actually made by the ant. This shock is really amazing, Warcraft. No, I have to grab it too. Sister, wait a moment. You can't just wait like this, Warcraft. Don't rush to kill yourself. The Blood Covenant has a distance limit. Wait a moment, I'll trade you the World Tree fruit. Elima was anxious in her heart, and she noticed that Elia had noticed her. The action of signing the Mount Blood contract in her hands suddenly accelerated. This is not possible. My eldest princess doesn't have a Warcraft mount yet. It can't be like this. I'll trade the World Tree fruit for it. No, sister, this is mine. My mount. I want to become the strongest ant knight in Oasis, don't compete with me. Elia looked at Elima with wary eyes, and her pursuit of the black ant slowed down. That's the fruit of the World Tree. Eating it will make you fly in the Oasis. You've always wanted it, haven't you? I'll give it to you now. Elima's face flushed as she coaxed her, desperately wanting Elia to give up the black ant. She even took out the World Tree fruit she had with her, a yellow mango-like fruit. No, flying can't compare to it. Elia stood in front of the black ant at some point, right in front of Elima. You can't stop me like this. Watching her younger sister's resolute face stand in front of her, the blood on the dagger dripping onto the ground, and the appearance of several bloodstains on her arm that have not yet stopped bleeding, Elima felt it was necessary for her to teach this sister to respect her elder sister. You grab everything from me, and my mother dotes on you. This mount was brought back by myself, it's mine. I won't give you anything I say. Elia waved her dagger, and the blood on it splattered as she swung it. Ha! Just as her blood was splattering, Elia let out a loud roar, jumped deep, and fiercely stabbed her sister with a dagger. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Queen of the Elven Kingdom. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Queen of the Elven Kingdom, don't shed tears until you see the coffin. Elima didn't expect Elia to swing her knife at each other, and her beautiful face was immediately covered in frost. Without any hesitation, Elima pulled out her short staff from behind and a small elf magic wand with a 1 centimeter sized magic stone embedded on top of her head. Water Curtain. Wrapping Technique. Instant Level 0 Magic Water Curtain is a group of gifted magic for elves, and any elf with magical talent can instantly cast this defensive magic. It is composed of water elements and forms a blue water condensation light curtain in front of the caster, which can resist physical and spell attacks and provide a 180-degree frontal defense. The wrapping technique, on the other hand, is a prerequisite magic for the first-level magic wrapping technique of the wooden series. It triggers wooden elements to form small vines to wrap around enemies, playing a role in controlling and limiting them. Blood Coagulation Sword. Seeing her sister using her usual techniques, Elia knew she couldn't defeat her own sister without making a breakthrough. So she shouted loudly, fighting for the potential of losing money in the future, and also using this family's secret technique to win over her sister. Elia, are you looking for death? Elima, why don't you stop quickly? Just as Elia was about to use her blood coagulation sword to deplete her essence, a voice that echoed through the oasis filled with anger and shock. Accompanied by the sound is a beam of electricity. The beam pierced through the oasis and flew all the way from the central elf palace, only to reach the warring sides in a few breaths. This time may seem fast, but if both sides were to make a move instead of stopping, it would have already resulted in an irreversible outcome. Therefore, Ivan, who was originally the protagonist and wanted to run next to him, inexplicably had a desire to see the excitement. Wait, how could I want to watch the excitement? I'm not that kind of person, right? It was just a moment of curiosity, when Ivan came to his senses and his mood was completely different from before, that beam of light had already reached his head. Give me town. Isn't it? You should have gone to argue with the beam of light, how could it directly shine on my head? I shouldn't have done this. It's too unscientific, isn't it? Shouldn't you stop the two daughters who are about to kill each other first? Ivan's huge black ant head is completely confused at this moment. It shouldn't be. There's no reason, it's not a script that a mother should have. Whether he wanted it or not, Ivan was eventually caught. Fortunately, I came quickly. Otherwise, I would have run away for this monster. A few seconds ago, she shouted to her two daughters not to fight, and a few seconds later, the rumored elf queen was already proud. Tsk tisk, neither of you should grab this one. The Black Ant Warcraft is now the public property of the Elf Kingdom. After I return to the kingdom and discuss with the ministers, I will decide how to dispose of it. The queen gave orders and did not even ask Ivan, who had completely ignored human rights, for his opinion. I naturally didn't pay attention to the ups and downs of the two princesses. Today is really a great day. Oasis hasn't been to Warcraft for a long time, so it's perfect to strengthen the strength of the palace guard. Not bad, not bad. In the future, the safety of the Oasis will be guaranteed again. Raising her head, she burst into a burst of laughter. The graceful queen, who was only 6 centimeters tall, raised her hand and waved the big ant Ivan, flying towards the palace while speaking. Look at that, I think after catching the ants, I forgot about my daughter's emotional issues. As expected, Elima, as her sister, snorted and turned her head away with some disdain. Elia, who brought back the ants, had some painful words. It was a pain that her close relatives did not pay enough attention to and did not value themselves enough. This pain was even more painful than the wound on her hand. Tick by tick, the blood on the arm flowed down the forearm onto the dagger, and then fell onto the young tree of Yalta. Blood slowly seeps in, gradually becoming invisible. One by two, are they just treating me as a resource or a decoration? Say it's my mother, say it's my sister. One always wants to marry me to the mushroom elf in the oasis next to me, and the other always wants to steal my things. Even the world tree where I live only wants to suck my blood. I finally understand. Elia looked at the ground with a gloomy expression, where the Yalta sapling had sucked away her blood. I don't know how to start, but the pain of being abandoned by the world surged up from the bottom of my heart, making Elia's face even darker. She chuckled for a while, then felt as if there was a deep pain and a rupture. The gloomy feeling on his body was suddenly subdued, and then a certain determination of burning jade and stone emerged. I said, that ant is mine. Elia muttered silently, as if she had already made some kind of decision. And this decision may lead the entire oasis of peace into some unknown danger. Not to mention Elia's decision, the little elf queen who had gained a lot over there had already returned to her palace with the big ant. At this point, the guards who were patrolling outside the palace complex had already returned. Standing at the front to greet was Uncle Babia, who Elia had previously met and was also the captain of the guard. Queen, you have returned. Hey, is this the little princess's ant mount? Babia first led the guards to give the queen a half-kneeling salute, and then stood up to look closely, only to find that the big ant brought back by the little princess was imprisoned by the queen and held in the air in her hand. Oh, have you ever seen this ant? Now it belongs to the elf kingdom, not some little princess's ant mount. The queen nodded to Babia, then calmly responded to her questions and continued forward. Her direction of advancement is the residence of the palace magicians, called the Magic Hall. In the Magic Hall, there is a summoning beast formation that is enough for her to properly control this ant warcraft. That magic formation, in her understanding, is better than any Mount Blood contract. Will the queen be too harsh on the little princess? Shoo, don't talk, the queen has always been like this. The eldest princess is so happy, I estimate this ant will eventually fall into her hands. Che, that's not necessarily true. It could also be the queen's new favorite. You're not going to die, don't mention that fairy, they know how to spell. Just as the great princess walked in front of the women's dynasty and followed her into the magic hall, the guards behind Babia began to whisper one by one. They are the guards of the Oasis, and even more so, the guards of the royal family. So they have been keeping an eye on the deeds of the queen's family. The reason why I had seen the little princess with spoiled laughter before was not a mockery, but rather a pity with some kind of heartache that wanted the little princess to let go of her family problems. Unfortunately, the little princess couldn't tell, and Babia and the other guards wouldn't actively explain those kind smiles. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. The World of Dragons. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 8. The Counter-Summoning of the Black Iron Maw. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. The Counter-Summoning of the Black Iron Maw. Just as Elia was searching for ways to retrieve the ants. As the center of the vortex, Ivan the Black Iron Maw is experiencing the touch of dozens of wonderful little elves. To be more precise, it is to apply the secret silver material onto the body for later use in casting. Not bad, not bad. The most beautiful thing about this kind of formation is not that it can create a summoning space for Warcraft to store them, but that it can allow Warcraft to have exquisite secret silver patterns tattooed on them. Look, Elima, how delicate are these ants now. The voice of the little elf queen was filled with joy, as she watched the black iron leech, which had become countless times more exquisite, and her pursuit of art in her heart was once again elevated to such a small level. Mother, is this black iron maw really a Warcraft? But just now, the palace mages tested it and found that it has no magic or any elemental particles. Not to mention the negative energy factor and positive energy factor. Elima doesn't have the same artistic talent as her mother, she's just focusing on the value of the black iron maw itself. That's for sure. Have you ever seen a talking ant? It's not a Warcraft, is that a divine beast? Ha ha ha. Upon hearing her daughter's voice, the queen confidently joked for a while, without feeling that her judgment would be wrong. Let go of me, I am the chief biogeneticist with A.level confidentiality authority in the federal government. Which department are you from? This is illegal imprisonment, let go of me. No, don't apply tattoos that criminals only love to tattoo on me. I'm a scholar, I'm a scientist, you can't humiliate me like this. As if to reflect the queen's words, the cries of the black iron maw echoed one after another, his voice still carrying metallic magnetism, some resembling the sound produced by the friction of electric ions. Mysteriously carrying the unique emotions of Warcraft, it is no different from the Oasis frog crouching next to the queen now. What he didn't realize was that his temperament was vastly different from when he was in the Federation. It seems that this delicious Warcraft is not very compatible, Queen. Do you want me to eat it? The size of the Oasis frog can be described as giant compared to the elf, with a body that is 1 meter high and 50 miles wide, and a huge frog mouth. At this moment, there were some snacks smashing inside the frog's mouth, which were insects eating food that was no different from ants. Hey, green frog, this is not for you to eat. Although insect Warcraft is delicious and happens to be restrained by you, it will become the second Warcraft mount in our Oasis. Although our Oasis is already ranked among the top 10 out of the 68 Oases in the center, and there is also a sacrificial deity serving the elf dragon born in our Oasis, there are not many Warcraft in today's dragon wilderness. Without the gift of dragon blood and the blessing of fairies, the dragon wilderness had long lost its ability to give birth to Warcraft. The queen restrained her joy and slowly turned around to leave the realm of the summoning magic formation. She walked outside the palace with a green frog while speaking. She will leave her time for her eldest daughter, which will be the greatest opportunity in her life. A Warcraft mount. I was able to rank in the top 10 of my Oasis because I had a Warcraft mount. Even the dragons looked up. Princess, you're ready. Her eyes turned as her mother left, and as soon as Princess Elima turned around, she heard the reports of the palace magicians. Let's get started. Without any hesitation, Elima walked up to a huge hexagram magic formation and lifted her slender arms, waving to start casting spells. Mysterious magical elements, positive and negative energy factors, the beloved spatial elements of summoners, please listen to my call and descend on this warcraft. Bind it, and transform it into my summoning beast. From then on, I will be its master, its life and death will depend on me, and its life will be honored by me. 2 high-pitched spells were shouted, and circles of bright white light shone along with them. The palace mages who were watching from around looked at the rise of the formation, each with a hint of greedy envy in their eyes. Who wouldn't envy me? Warcraft mounts. After the invasion of another world, besides the lair territory in Misty Forest of the pure-blood dragon clan, where else can Warcraft be produced? No more. The existing Warcraft, although in large numbers, are already owned by masters. Each head is a precious creature with a name and surname that will be recognized immediately upon walking away. It's rare to find an ownerless monster on the dragon wilderness, it's like being blessed by a fairy. Good luck is at stake. In just a few moments when my mind was spinning, the radiance burst forth with fierceness. A grand and mysterious aura passed by, and a huge black hole inexplicably emerged in the air. Black holes are like collapsed space tunnels, generating infinite suction from the moment they are born. The first one to be sucked away is the black iron leech, which can be called a giant among ants. This is not scientific. What is this? How could a black hole just appear? Don't suck me away, what the hell am I going through? The screams of black iron maw rang out, but every wizard present did not pay attention to his cries. They watched intently, not wanting to miss any details. This is a rare magical scene. The last time the summoning array was activated was more than 20 years ago when the contemporary queen inherited the Oasis frog from the previous queen. Wait, this is... No. Just as the black iron maw was being sucked away by the black hole and the summoning light gradually dimmed, a huge change suddenly appeared. The little elf princess shouted for no reason, as if she had experienced something unbelievable. The eldest princess. What's wrong? Did it fail? The court mages asked in unison, looking concerned. No, it's okay. I'll go take a break. You guys are busy. For some reason, the princess who was just screaming suddenly fell silent. After a casual remark, the eldest princess turned around and walked towards the outside of the palace. Princess, is this? Perhaps being too excited after success. That's right, after all, it's a Warcraft, that's amazing. The court mages were puzzled by the condition of the Grand Princess, but did not delve into it. After all, it's a newly acquired Warcraft, and even the Queen would lose her composure, let alone the Grand Princess. Am I entering a new body again? Just as the palace mages were guessing and guessing, the protagonist, Black Iron Ma Ivan, who had been sucked away, had already begun to familiarize himself with his new body in confusion. This kind of touch, can't be so lewd. I walked to a dark corner and hid for a moment, then transformed into Ivan inside the body of the little elf princess and quietly checked myself. Then, as if touching some graceful touch, my whole body shook up. So I've traveled through time. Looking at his plump and slender body with long legs and slender waist, Ivan suddenly realized that he had experienced the time travel hypothesis among the top 10 scientific hypotheses. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. I am Ivan the Traveler. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. I am Ivan the Traveler. The so-called top 10 scientific conjectures refer to the scientific misconceptions proposed by 10 academic leaders in the federal community after the highly advanced technology and the entry of the universe era. The most famous conjecture among them is the crossing of cats proposed by Schwedingu. The crossing of cats is a soul-crossing conjecture proposed by scientist Schwedingu based on the shuttle and spatial characteristics of wormholes after the discovery of real wormholes by the Federation. This conjecture assumes that the teleportation of wormholes may not necessarily be in material form, but may be in soul or spiritual form. If this assumption holds, then to pass through a wormhole, three modalities need to be satisfied. One is that the shuttle or object must have a soul and spirit. The second is that the shuttle or object has the ability to maintain its soul and spirit during the shuttle process, without being destroyed by the overflowing spatial energy. The third is that the shuttle or object voluntarily and can abandon their body or carrier before the shuttle. Based on this conjecture and assumption, Xue Dingyu conducted a historically well-documented experiment on the passage of cats. This experiment is also the most controversial aspect of Xue Dingyu. The specific experimental process is to strip the cat's crossing conditions one by one according to his own conjecture, and then truly use the power of the Federation to find a wormhole. The spirit and soul of the cat, which was briefly captured by the quantum collider, are transported into the wormhole using an unmanned shuttle spacecraft. And as a result, in the near future, someone targeted a huge tiger and suddenly spoke out in front of Xue Dingyu, biting him to death. When you adopted me as a pet, I was very happy. But when I was treated as an experimental creature, I really hated you. Being able to die in my cat's mouth was also our fate. This is a passage recorded in history that is extremely eerie, full of mystical colors, and of great scientific research value. Few modern federal scientists have paid attention to these historical scientific speculations. Even if they have been recorded, there is still relevant data. But these speculations all contain extremely unscientific elements, such as the passage of cats. Which scientist can accept the fact that a cat really crossed over and turned into a tiger, and even spoke and bit the scientist who conducted his experiment? Is it a fantasy story or a fantasy story? However, in history, there have indeed been influential and written records, documenting this terrifying event that subverts scientific research and the logical system of science. Perhaps due to their unscientific nature, the top 10 conjectures have spread from academia to popular literature authors in the Federation, becoming fictional fulcrums for countless stories and literary works. Ivan was fortunate to have read related novels before becoming an official federal research scholar. The only thing he felt unfortunate was that one day he became the true essence of this conjecture. I didn't expect to encounter two conjectures in a row one day. Turning back from the cat's journey, Ivan glanced at the petite yet plump body and remembered another conjecture. Body exchange. This conjecture, as the name suggests, is that there is a possibility of exchanging bodies between organisms. Its conjecture, experiment and development are another huge discourse. Ivan just flashed through his mind, not ready to recall the various experimental data and historical records from the past. He just wants to know how to deal with the ant body stored in his mind, as well as the woman in his heart who keeps calling for you to let me go. No, the exotic female body. Please, Warcraft, no, god of ants, ancestor of ants. Can you let me out? I dare not use summoning techniques to catch mounts anymore. Please, that's my body. As an ant, you're not used to using the body of a little elf, are you? Just as Ivan was pondering endlessly, the deep voice in his heart rang out. I understand now, it must be the ant's body structure that restricts the movement of my mind and soul, which makes me feel dizzy every time I want to think. Yes, after replacing this body, my soul and spirit have a better carrier, and my thinking ability gradually recover to the human body. This is amazing research data, I need to take note of it. Wait, damn it, don't disturb me. I need to find a place to hide and study the current situation. Ivan kept pondering, and the voice also kept begging for mercy. No one inside the Elf King Palace noticed the princess crouching in the corner muttering to herself, but everyone heard the news that the eldest princess had obtained a Warcraft today. Every little elf who passes by the princess will envy in their hearts. Look, I'm happy and crying. I really miss it too. So, what should have been an incredibly strange behavior has become incredibly reasonable at this moment. The little elves are all thinking that this is the reaction that Warcraft should have. It's really too happy. Eva ultimately couldn't ignore that voice, but he gained control. Just as the owner of that voice said she was willing to serve, a strange sensation appeared in Ivan's heart. So he casually used it and summoned a black iron leech. This black iron leech is carrying the princess inside its body. And what was inside the princess's body was Ivan, who was originally stuffed into the black iron maw. It's really a big turn, even Ivan didn't expect it, and Elima, who was installed inside the ant's body, didn't expect it either. "Daughter, how do you feel about getting a new Warcraft mount?" Just as Ivan looked up at the crying Princess Heidi Ma, a beautiful voice came from beside him. "Oh, it's Empress Mother. I think it's pretty good, very active." Listening to the princess's continuous crying from the bottom of her heart, Ivan naturally smiled and faced her mother with her own body. "Not bad, not bad. She is truly the daughter who will inherit my throne. From today on, you will be the Ant Duke of the 7th Oasis. I have instructed the officials to issue instructions, and your fiefdom is the young Yalta tree." The queen was filled with joy when she saw her daughter smiling brightly. "This is my daughter, not bad, not bad. Thank you, Queen Mother." Ivan seamlessly joined the elf's body and smiled sweetly. "But in my heart, I keep telling myself, don't vomit, you want to survive in a different world, disguise is just the first step, disguise is just the first step. Don't let extraterrestrial creatures discover you. You still have to study them. Alright, let's go play." The queen saw her daughter so happy and smiled, patting her buttocks. This was a gesture of affection from the elf royal family. "Ah, mother, you're okay. I'll go play now." Ivan, who couldn't take measures to prevent being robbed, suddenly turned red in the face. This is the first time a woman has turned around and touched his buttocks. Oh my goodness, this feeling, so shy. "Hey, did you put in a lot of effort?" Looking at her daughter's shy appearance, the queen looked at the female official next to her with some confusion, and then patted her buttocks with the same force. "Is it powerful?" the queen asked the female official. "Well, I remember there were still some government affairs." The female official did not expect the queen to suddenly blush and run away in a panic. Strange. The queen looked at her palm with some confusion. Then he looked up and met the Oasis frog next to him. "Wait, I'm Warcraft, you don't want me." Oasis frogs sweat profusely on their faces. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. The First Run of Ant Life. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. The First Run of Ant Life. As the eldest daughter of the Queen of the Elf Kingdom, Elima has been proficient in martial arts and magic since childhood, and has also studied the history of the elves and ancient history of the continent. She is a knowledgeable and cultured princess. Except for being a demon in the eyes of Princess Elia, every Oasis elf praises the princess. But at this moment, there was a famous federal scientist who kept cursing the great princess for reading for so many years. "I'm so angry. You've been reading books for so many years in vain. How many years ago did you never know what happened? This is something that federal basic education must learn. You even know something as unscientific as magic. How can you not understand the history of your world? I'm so angry." Ivan, who was still inside Elia's body, was angrily stomping his feet to scare the ant body stuffed into her soul. He's so angry. Just now, Elia confidently said she understands the history of the Dragon Wilderness, but she only asked hundreds of questions and couldn't answer them. If they were in the federal government, high school students might have to do hundreds of questions in a day, and this Elia even claimed to be a princess with a lower education level than federal high school students. "I feel dizzy. I really can't remember." "No, don't. Your feet are scary. Wait a minute. That's my foot. I sob. I beg you. Ah. Yes. It's the Queen Mother. Help me. I'm here." Just as Ivan was constantly replacing the ants, the Queen of the Elf Kingdom arrived. She saw Ivan constantly scaring the ants, and the ants were surprised to see their pitiful appearance, so they asked with some confusion. "Daughter, what's wrong with this?" When the queen's question was asked, Elia, who was hiding inside the ant's body, kept shouting, "Mother, mother, he changed my body. Help me, mother." No one could hear it, but Ivan, who could hear it, completely immersed himself in the role that a traveler should have. Disguise is disguise. The first skill for survival in another world. "It's okay, mother. This black iron leech's brain is a bit difficult to control, and it feels like it might be caused by insects' brain regions not being large enough. I can't even provide feedback on the most basic commands and problems." In Ivan's heart, a question arose. In which year, month, and day was your dragon wilderness invaded by another world? Why did they invade you at that time, and how did they break your world into 7 or 8 pieces? You should know all of this, right? But with a sweet smile on his face, he responded sweetly to the elf queen. "Oh, that's right. That's true, after all, insects' brains are already small, unlike Oasis frogs, they can still communicate with me for a few words. Is that right, green frog?" The queen turned her head to look at the green frog, and then in the slightly abnormal gaze of the green frog, she turned back and smiled at Ivan. "Yeah, if possible, I really want to take him out for a walk." "Mother, can you let me go out?" Ivan, who had just arrived in a different world and was unsure of the etiquette here, took advantage of this conversation to propose something he wanted to do for a long time. He wants to explore and see this world. "Sure, of course. You could have entered and exited on your own, so you don't have to ask me so politely." I don't know why, but when you politely asked my mother if I could leave the oasis, she felt very comfortable. This also reminded me of that headache-inducing little devil. Every time I left the oasis, it was silent and always brought back some strange troubles. Fortunately, this time I brought back Warcraft, otherwise I would have punished her. The elf queen smiled and touched Ivan's head, praising Ivan with great praise. And while watching from the side, Elima, the revered aunt, cried in her heart to see such maternal kindness and filial piety. "Okay, then I'll go out after the mother." Ivan didn't expect to easily obtain permission to enter and exit the oasis. He may have to go through 7 or 8 rounds of review to get a takeout in the federal market. This foreign world is really different. Go ahead. Watching the queen happily kick black ants out of the palace, I am very pleased to have such a good eldest daughter. Indeed, you are still a big and sensible person. The queen sighed. The 7th oasis is the name of the oasis where Elia and Elima are located. Due to the convenience of naming, it is also convenient for people to remember the location of these oases. From east to west, from west to south, from south to north, from north to east. A figure-8 walking method is the sorting of the oasis Route 68. The 7th oasis is located at the southwest corner of the entire central oasis. Oasis may sound like a lot, but in reality, it's just a small pond with some hidden creatures. Except for the 7th oasis, which has 2 huge, world trees, relative to the elves, none of the other oases, even the top 6 oases, have seen more luxurious configurations. Ivan spent a short time exploring these small pools. He finished looking at the oasis, studied the insects passing by, and after communicating with many residents of the little elf oasis who were suddenly stopped by the roadside, he arrived outside the oasis. In front of him was a desert. The Gobi Desert is vast and boundless, and extremely hot. The wind and sand occasionally blow up, occasionally shattering a few weathered rocks that have been blown through by the wind for a long time. Is this the dragon wilderness? I thought it was so cruel. Ivan took a photo of Elia, who was gradually adapting to her summoning beast identity next to her, and with some disappointment, she flipped over the top of the ant's head. The previously helpless ant has now been transferred. Let's run. He grabbed 2 large antennae and casually pointed in the direction of a wilderness, giving commands in a fierce manner. Woo-woo, I am suffering hard. Hurry up and run. Do you want to close it tightly? Yes. The ant obviously didn't cooperate well, but driven by Ivan, the beautiful woman, it still started running. TSK, this speed is amazing. I caught up with the supercar. As the wind brushed against his cheeks, Ivan felt the speed at which the ants were running. Comparatively, based on the flying speed of the elves and the running speed of the Federation humans, and comparing the speed of the sports car with that of the humans, it is calculated that the running speed of the ants in the world of the elves is comparable to that of the Federation supercar. Simply put, it's cool. So, Master, can you let me go back? After running for a while, Elima gradually accepted her enslaved status and timidly asked. Originally, Elima was such a proud elf that she could suppress the little Princess Elia, but she didn't want to be like an angry Mantu at this time. What do you think? At that time, I shouted for help, called for breaking the law, called for the identity of the Federation, called for letting me go. Did any of you spare me? If it weren't for the mysterious power of the meteor that came with me, which caused your summoning to be reversed, I might have been your character now. Do you think I should repay good for bad? Don't be foolish. The 18 years of compulsory education in the federal government have taught us that repaying virtue and resentment is the fairest way in the world. Of course, you can either disagree or change. Can you? Ivan looked at the wilderness in front of him and responded to Elima's request with a slightly cold tone. That is an insight and also a way of dealing with things. Having arrived in a different world, he had already decided that he would bring the light of the Federation here. And the first step is to completely conquer this ant. Oh, it's Princess Elima's mount. End of this chapter.